Hello. So, in today's video, I'm going to be showing you how to make particles for Minecraft Bedrock Edition. This tutorial will only really work on PC, but yeah, that's how I made my particles. So, first you want to look up Snowstorm. It used to be able to be done just on anything, but you just want to install it. Probably if you go on this one, which is Visual Studio Marketplace, just make sure you're clicking the right install button because you don't want to get a virus. But that's basically the first step. Okay, so now you have to go into the description of my video, and I'm pretty sure I'll have a download for this blank texture pack. And when you open it, it should look like this. I'll explain to you the basics of this. So the first thing you want to see is that in this one, this is just the texture that's going to be on your pack when you load into the game. You can make this whatever you want. It just has to be a square. This one is it basically tells the game that it is a texture pack. So this part's the description, this part's the name, or the title, or whatever you want to call it. But then in these two things, you have to put important code sort of thing. I'll show you how to do that towards the end of the video. In the textures one, you'll see textures and then particle. This is where you're going to put the textures for the particles that you're going to make. And this is where you're going to put the particles that you do make. I'll show you how to do this after we get into Snowstorm. But now, I'm going to show you how to make the textures. I'm not great at making videos, so the video is probably going to be jumpy, but in a lot of the tutorials that I see for these things, usually they just tell you to just make a texture, but I don't know if everyone really knows how to do that. So Paint 3D should be on all of the all Windows versions. No, well, just all Windows computers in general, but yeah, so I usually use Paint 3D. So the first thing is, after I click New, I go into Canvas, and then I make it 16 by 16. It doesn't really matter what ratio you make it, but preferably you'd want a square, so these two things are the same, or something small. 16 by 16 is what is normally used for Minecraft, so I'd recommend using that. You also have to turn off or turn on transparent canvas, or else you're going to get a white background on anything you make. Another thing to keep in mind when you're making these textures is that if you make it white, you can change the color in Snowstorm, so you might prefer to make them be white. So for this video, I just made this little cross thing. You just want to save that to your desktop, or if you know how to, just directly into the textures part of your folder. I'll show what that looks like. So once you have it saved, you would move it over here, right? And then that's basically how you would get it. It should look like in the textures section, or you go here, textures, particle, sparkle. It should not go into this particle area. That's where we're going to put the actual particle files. This one's just the texture of the particle. So now that you have the texture for the particle, you're ready to put it into Snowstorm. When you open up Snowstorm, it should look like this. First, you want to put in the identifier. This can be anything, but I usually just like to go with something like, I don't know, I'm going to do spark. So this is just, you're going to have to type this in exactly into the game when you do. And you're going to have to follow, a lot of these steps to make a particle. The first one is, usually I like to change the mode from steady to instant. And you have to set it at a certain amount. I would say probably 20 is a good amount for what I want to make. In the shape category, you can choose what shape you want. If you click sphere, you can make a radius of whatever. If you want it to be a more symmetrical sphere, I'd recommend clicking surface only, and then now the particles only spawn on the surface. So I have it back to point mode, and then I opened up the motion category. You want to have, if you want to do what I'm doing, I'm just setting the direction to outwards, and you can make its speed like 2, and then it does a little explosion effect or something. If you add something in this category, it's like coordinates in that, it'll go up in that direction, or it'll go in that direction. Now, here's the part that's a little bit harder. You're going to click on the Choose File section, and if you have it saved on your desktop, then you click on Choose File, you go to your desktop, you find the name of the folder, like which should be blank, or it should be blank particles, or if you change the name, it should be whatever that is. Then you go into Textures, and then Particle, and then select your texture. Now that you have that done, you can see your particle that you picked. Except here's the part that's very important. If you don't do this correctly, your texture won't show up correctly. It's a whole big annoying thing. So you want to basically set this to the UV size to the size of the particle that you saved. So in my case, this texture is 16 by 16. So I set the UV size to 16 by 16. The UV start is where it wants to start finding the image for the texture, which means it sees the actual texture, but it doesn't know what part to start from. So you need to set that to 0 by 0. For this place, this is where it'll find the texture inside the file. So you want to put this as textures / particle / the name it says right here, spark. Now you have that done, you can do something like color and light, which you can set to, I don't know, that color. You can do a lot more stuff, so you can just look up a video on how to, I don't know, use Snowstorm, but I'm mostly just showing the parts that usually aren't in most tutorials. Now that you've made your particle, you want to go into File and Download. This will save your file as a .json. You want to move this into the particle section of your folder, not underneath textures. Or actually, it should be called particles. When you moved it in, you should be able to see it right here. It's pretty, I mean, just there. It won't look like anything, but you can open it and see it inside of it. You can see where it has the identifier saved, what material it is. I mean, you can set that wherever, and then where it's finding the texture. What you need to make sure you do is you need to make sure it goes to the correct location. So it's looking for texture, particles, spark. So when you go into your folder, you should be able to follow textures, particle, and spark, and be able to see it. And that's means it's going to the correct location. That's basically all you really need to make sure. And if the texture isn't appearing right, make sure the correct parameters are set in the texture width, texture height, UV, and UV size. Now that you've done that, you're almost ready to export it. This is one of the easier steps, although it looks a little bit complicated. You first want to open up your manifest file, and then click on the link I put in the description called UUID Generator. When you open up that link, your screen should look like this. It should have this long string of numbers. You want to copy this string of numbers and then paste it into the first UUID player of the manifest. You want to do this twice for both of the UUIDs. Make sure you don't use the same one I'm using. and make sure to have these two ones be different. So now that you've done that, you're ready to do the final step, which is just, putting into the game. I'll put a video link in the description that shows you more in depth how to do that, but for the most part, you only need the end part where it tells you how to put it into the actual game. First, you want to highlight all of these files and stuff. Then you want to right click, go to 7-zip, and then you want to click add to blank textures particle. That'll give you this full file or zipped file. All you want to do now is click rename, go to the end, and do .mc pack. Actually, before you want to do that, you want to make sure that all the correct files are inside of here when you click on here. And yeah, they are. Now that you've done that, you can finally do rename. And you want to rename it to .mc pack. It will prompt you with this message. You just want to click yes. After you rename the texture pack, after you rename the zip file, you want to open up Minecraft. Make sure it's fully loaded. Oh god, what's it doing? Make sure it's fully loaded, and then you can double click it. This will start importing the pack into the game. Now it says it has successfully imported the particles. Next thing you want to do is create a new world to test out your particles. For this one, you find My Particles, and you can activate it. Depending on what you changed the name to, it could be named differently. Preferably, you'd want to set your game mode to creative. Once you're in the game, you can see what your particle looks like by typing in /particle, and then the effect string, or the effect string you made it. So in this case, we had spark: spark. If I type that in, our particle will play. That's all you need to do to make particles in Minecraft. Of course, there's a lot of other things you can add to your particles.